exploring the foundations of philosophy. Welcome to a journey through the vast and intriguing world of philosophy. If you've ever wondered about the nature of reality, the limits of human knowledge, or the very essence of existence, you're in the right place. Philosophy isn't just about pondering abstract ideas, it's about questioning everything: your life, your choices, your world, and even your own consciousness. It's about unraveling deep, timeless questions that will challenge the way you see everything around you. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell so you can join us on this intellectual adventure, where we'll explore the mysteries of the universe and our place within it. Philosophy has been around for thousands of years, stretching its roots back to ancient civilizations. But it's not just something that belongs to the past. It's incredibly relevant today, as we grapple with questions that shape the way we live, think, and interact with the world around us. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is philosophy? For many, philosophy is simply a way of thinking deeply about life, but it goes beyond that. It's not about giving simple answers or accepting the world as it appears at first glance. Instead, philosophy is a way of approaching life that challenges assumptions, questions reality, and invites us to think critically about everything we believe to be true. In fact, the word philosophy comes from the Greek philos, meaning love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. So, quite literally, philosophy is the love of wisdom, and it's that love that drives people to ask some of the most fundamental questions we could ever ponder. Questions like, what is the nature of reality? What is the meaning of life? How do we know what we know? What does it mean to be good or evil? How should we live, and why? These are not questions we can answer overnight, and that's okay. Philosophy isn't about finding quick, easy solutions. It's about the pursuit of knowledge and the process of exploring these questions in depth. The ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle believed that by asking the right questions, we could uncover the essential truths about the world. But let's not jump ahead just yet. If we're going to understand philosophy in its full scope, we need to start by asking ourselves, why does this matter? Why should we care about these big questions, especially in a world that seems to value practicality and instant answers? Philosophy is important because it helps us get to the root of who we are, and why we do the things we do. It's about understanding the forces that shape our thoughts, behaviors, and actions. It's about breaking free from the surface-level distractions of everyday life and digging into the fundamental aspects of our existence. After all, how can we truly understand the world around us if we don't understand ourselves first? Philosophy can give us the tools to look at the world in a new way. It forces us to critically evaluate the assumptions we carry about life, about other people, and even about ourselves. By questioning the things we take for granted, we can open the door to new possibilities and insights. But let's face it, this journey won't always be easy. Philosophy is often about wrestling with ideas that don't have clear-cut answers. The more we learn, the more questions we uncover. And sometimes, the answers we find are more complex and unsettling than we ever expected. But that's what makes it so rewarding. So, how do we begin this journey of inquiry? In the next part of this exploration, we'll take a closer look at the history of philosophy, starting with its origins in ancient Greece. We'll see how the first philosophers sought to understand the world through reason, logic, and critical thinking, rejecting myths and superstitions in favor of intellectual rigor. They didn't just want to tell stories about the world, they wanted to understand it. But before we go there, I want to hear from you. What big questions about life have you always wanted answers to? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let's start the conversation. And remember, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to join us on this journey of philosophical discovery. We're just getting started, and you won't want to miss the mind-bending ideas we'll explore together. The origins and branches of philosophy. In the previous part of our journey, we discussed why philosophy matters and how it can change the way we understand the world. But now, let's dig deeper. Let's take a look at where philosophy began, how it evolved, and the different paths it can take us on today. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned as we continue this incredible journey into the nature of reality, knowledge, and our place in the cosmos. Let's explore the roots of philosophy. The birth of philosophy in ancient Greece. To understand philosophy, we have to go back, way back, to ancient Greece, around 500 years before the Common Era. This was a time of incredible intellectual movement, and it marked the beginning of a new way of thinking. The Greeks were the first to step away from myths and stories to explain the world around them and, instead, sought to understand the world through reason and rational thought. Philosophy, as we know it, was born out of the tension between mythos, myth, and logos, reason. Before the Greeks, people explained the world through myths, stories passed down through generations about gods, goddesses, and supernatural forces. But as humanity advanced, thinkers began to question these stories. They asked, is there more to life than what we're told? Can we understand the world using reason and evidence? Enter the first philosophers, such as Thales, Anaximander, and Heraclitus. These early philosophers sought to explain the world through the principles of logic and reason, looking for underlying truths about the nature of existence, the cosmos, and the human experience. They believed that the universe was not governed by unpredictable gods, but by universal laws that could be discovered through observation and rational thought. One of the key turning points in philosophical history came with Socrates, who emphasized questioning as the method for arriving at truth. Socrates didn't just accept knowledge at face value, he challenged everything. He is famous for saying, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This notion, that we must question our assumptions and understand the reasons behind our actions, has shaped philosophy ever since. Socrates used dialogue and critical thinking to question people about their beliefs, helping them see their own assumptions and contradictions. Plato and Aristotle, the pioneers of thought. After Socrates, two of his most famous students, Plato and Aristotle, further shaped the landscape of philosophy. Plato, Socrates' student, developed a comprehensive system of thought that still influences us today. He founded the Academy in Athens, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. Plato's work focused on ethics, politics, and metaphysics, the study of what exists and the nature of reality itself. Plato is perhaps most famous for his theory of forms, the idea that the physical world is merely a shadow of a higher, ideal reality. Plato's student, Aristotle, took a more empirical approach, emphasizing observation and categorization. Where Plato believed in abstract forms, Aristotle sought to understand the world through the study of nature and logic. Aristotle's contributions were vast. He explored topics ranging from ethics and politics to biology and logic. His work laid the foundations for empiricism and the scientific method that would later influence thinkers like Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. These two giants of philosophy were the architects of Western thought, shaping how we think about knowledge, reality, and our place in the world. But even as Plato and Aristotle pushed philosophy forward, they raised more questions than they could answer, questions that continue to haunt philosophers to this day. The three branches of philosophy. So, what exactly does philosophy tackle? To better understand the breadth of philosophical inquiry, philosophers have broken it down into three main branches. Metaphysics, the study of reality. Metaphysics is perhaps the most fundamental branch of philosophy because it deals with the most basic questions of existence. What is the nature of reality? What exists? What is the essence of being? Are we just a collection of particles in motion, or is there something deeper at play in the fabric of reality? These are the questions metaphysics seeks to answer. Epistemology, the study of knowledge. Epistemology tackles questions like, how do we know what we know? What is truth? Can we be certain about anything? This branch focuses on understanding the limits of human knowledge, the sources of our beliefs, and how we come to form conclusions about the world. Philosophers have long grappled with skepticism, the belief that we can't truly know anything, and work to understand how to arrive at truth. Value theory, the study of ethics and aesthetics. Value theory is divided into two main branches: ethics, the study of moral values, how we should live, and how we should treat others, and aesthetics, the study of beauty and art. Ethics explores questions like, what is the right thing to do? How should we live our lives? What is justice? Aesthetics, on the other hand, asks questions about beauty and art. What is beauty? Why do we value certain forms of art or experiences over others? These questions touch on the very core of human existence, how we choose to live and what we find meaningful. Why philosophy is still important today. You might be wondering, why is philosophy still so relevant? After all, we live in an era dominated by technology, science, and instant answers. But philosophy remains incredibly valuable because it gives us the tools to think critically about the world and our place in it. While science tells us how things work, philosophy asks why. In today's world, we face new ethical dilemmas, complex questions about artificial intelligence, and profound issues surrounding human rights, identity, and the environment. Philosophy equips us with the ability to navigate these challenges, think critically, and question the assumptions that guide our actions. That's all for this part, but we're just getting started. In the next part, we'll dive into some of the big questions that have fascinated philosophers for millennia, questions about existence, free will, and the nature of the self. Stay tuned. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of philosophy. Let me know in the comments, what philosophical question has always intrigued you? Let's continue the conversation. Deep questions and the nature of existence. In the first two parts of our journey through philosophy, we explored the history of philosophy, its foundational branches, and the ancient Greek thinkers who helped shape our understanding of the world. Now, it's time to tackle some of the biggest, deepest, and most fundamental questions in philosophy. What is existence? What does it mean to be? These questions have troubled philosophers for centuries, and today, we'll dive into them to explore the nature of reality and our place within it. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any of the insights that are about to unfold. Let's begin. What is existence? We've all asked the question, why am I here? It's an existential question that has troubled people for millennia. What is the nature of my existence? Am I simply the product of random events, or is there something more meaningful to my life? This inquiry into existence forms the core of metaphysics, the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature of reality. To understand existence, philosophers have long asked, what does it mean to exist? Some of the earliest thinkers, like Pythagoras and Heraclitus, believed that reality was rooted in fundamental principles. Pythagoras saw it as mathematics, while Heraclitus thought it was fire, constantly changing and in flux. These early philosophers were searching for the underlying essence of everything, the basic substance that gave rise to everything we see, touch, and experience. But it wasn't until Plato and Aristotle that philosophers began to explore the nature of being more systematically. Plato introduced the concept of forms, the idea that everything we experience in the physical world is just an imperfect reflection of an ideal, perfect form that exists in a higher, non-physical reality. To Plato, what we see and experience is not real in the truest sense, it's just a shadow of something far more profound. Aristotle, on the other hand, took a more grounded approach. He believed that everything in the physical world is real and that we can study the world around us to understand its nature. For him, being is closely linked to substance. Everything that exists has a fundamental substance that makes it what it is, whether it's a rock, a tree, or a human being. The question of free will, are we truly free? Another question that has lingered in philosophy for centuries is whether we have free will. Are we truly free to make choices, or are our decisions predetermined by factors beyond our control, like our biology, upbringing, and environment? Determinism is the belief that everything in the universe, including our actions, is caused by prior events. According to this view, the universe follows a set of predetermined laws, and every event or action is the result of a chain of prior causes. If this is true, then can we really be held responsible for our actions? Are we just following a script written by our biology, our genes, or our upbringing? Philosophers like Baruch Spinoza and Pierre-Simon Laplace embraced this deterministic view of the universe, arguing that if we knew all the causes behind a person's actions, we could predict everything they would do. If everything is determined, what role does free will play? But not all philosophers agree. Jean-Paul Sartre, for example, believed that we are radically free to make choices and define ourselves. Sartre argued that although we are influenced by external factors, we still have the power to make meaningful choices that shape our identity. This view is part of a broader school of thought known as existentialism, which emphasizes personal freedom, choice, and responsibility. What is the self? Am I more than my body? One of the most profound questions in philosophy is, what is the self? This question has been central to philosophy for millennia, as philosophers have tried to understand what it means to be a person, and whether there is something beyond our physical body that defines us. René Descartes, a French philosopher in the 17th century, famously said, "Cogito, ergo sum, I think, therefore I am." Descartes believed that the essence of being human is thought, the ability to think and reason. He argued that our consciousness, our ability to reflect on ourselves and the world, is the defining feature of our existence. According to Descartes, while our bodies are made of matter, our minds, our thoughts and awareness, are something entirely different. This separation of the mind and body is known as dualism, and it raises important questions about what constitutes the self. But not everyone agrees with Descartes. Some philosophers, like Baruch Spinoza and Gilbert Ryle, argue that there is no true separation between mind and body. For them, the mind is simply an extension of the body, and our thoughts and consciousness are deeply connected to the physical world. In modern philosophy, the question of the self has also been influenced by neuroscience. Advances in brain science suggest that our sense of self is closely tied to the physical processes of the brain. Is the mind just the product of the brain's neural activity? If so, what happens to the self when the brain deteriorates, like in cases of Alzheimer's disease or brain injuries? Does our identity still exist, or is it lost as our body changes? The power of consciousness. Who are we, really? Another profound aspect of philosophy is the study of consciousness, the awareness we have of ourselves and the world around us. Consciousness is what makes us aware of our thoughts, our emotions, and our surroundings. It's the thing that allows us to reflect on our own existence. Philosophers like David Chalmers have explored what's known as the hard problem of consciousness, the question of how and why subjective experiences arise from neural processes. While we know a great deal about how the brain works, the question of why we have experiences, the feeling of seeing color, the sensation of pain, or the awareness of our thoughts, remains one of the greatest mysteries in both science and philosophy. But consciousness doesn't just affect our individual lives, it also connects us to the world. As we explore questions of existence and the self, we begin to ask, what is our connection to the universe? Are we isolated beings, or are we deeply interconnected with everything around us? How does our consciousness influence the reality we experience? And that's it this part. We've just scratched the surface of some of the most profound and timeless questions in philosophy. The next part will take us deeper into the exploration of human identity, the mind-body connection, and the mysteries of the universe. If you're enjoying this exploration of deep questions and the nature of existence, like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of our philosophical journey. And, as always, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. What part of existence are you still wondering about? Let's continue the conversation. The meaning of life, ethics, and the future of philosophy. Welcome to the final part of our philosophical journey. So far, we've explored some of the deepest and most profound questions about existence, the self, and the nature of reality. But as we conclude this exploration, there's one last territory we must venture into, the question of meaning. If you've been following along, you already know that philosophy isn't about giving easy answers. It's about diving into the unknown, challenging assumptions, and seeing the world in a completely new way. And when it comes to understanding life's meaning, there's no better way to approach it than through philosophy. But first, before we dive into the complexities of meaning and value, take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. This is the final piece of the puzzle, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. What is the meaning of life? For millennia, humans have sought to understand the meaning of life. Are we here by design, by accident, or are we simply floating in the vastness of space with no inherent purpose? This is where existentialism comes into play. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, and Martin Heidegger have deeply explored what it means to exist without a predetermined purpose. In the absence of a divine plan, they argue, the responsibility to find meaning falls on each individual. According to Sartre, we are condemned to be free, that is, we have the freedom to make choices, but we also carry the burden of responsibility for those choices. Sartre believed that, without an inherent meaning, we must create our own purpose through the actions we take and the values we choose. This belief is empowering yet heavy. It means that we are responsible for defining the meaning of our lives. But what about those who say life does have meaning, that there's a higher purpose? Many philosophers turn to religion or theism for answers. For thinkers like Immanuel Kant, the moral order of the universe is anchored in the existence of a higher power, a supreme moral being who dictates what is right and wrong. This view suggests that life's meaning comes from aligning our actions with moral laws dictated by a divine source. Then, of course, we have spiritual philosophies that believe life's meaning is found in connection to a greater whole, the universe, nature, or a higher consciousness. In many Eastern philosophies like Buddhism and Hinduism, life's purpose is often about enlightenment, self-realization, and escaping the cycle of suffering. So, whether through existential freedom or divine law, or the pursuit of enlightenment, one thing is certain: the meaning of life is something we constantly search for, something that gives us direction, purpose, and a reason to keep moving forward. Ethics and morality. How should we live? Now that we've examined the question of meaning, let's shift gears and dive into another cornerstone of philosophy, ethics. Ethics is the branch of philosophy concerned with how we should live, what is right, what is wrong, and why. Ethical questions permeate every part of life. Think about your own choices, how you treat others, the impact of your actions on society, and the moral dilemmas you face on a daily basis. We are constantly grappling with questions like, what does it mean to live a good life? Do the ends justify the means? How do we balance personal happiness with the well-being of others? Philosophers like Aristotle argued that ethics is about flourishing, living in accordance with our highest potential and fulfilling our purpose. For Aristotle, the good life is one that cultivates virtue and seeks balance, harmony, and wisdom. He proposed the concept of the golden mean, the idea that moral virtue lies in finding a balance between extremes, courage between recklessness and cowardice, generosity between extravagance and stinginess. Then there's utilitarianism, the philosophy that says the right thing to do is what maximizes happiness for the greatest number of people. Philosophers like John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham argued that we should weigh the consequences of our actions to ensure we promote the greatest amount of happiness and reduce suffering. On the other hand, philosophers like Immanuel Kant advocated for a system of deontological ethics, which suggests that there are absolute moral duties we must adhere to, regardless of the consequences. According to Kant, some actions are inherently right or wrong, and we must follow these moral laws because they are universal. Ethics isn't just about personal decisions. It shapes the larger societal structures we live in. From politics to business to environmentalism, ethics influences how we think about laws, justice, and fairness. It's the framework for how societies decide what is just and equitable and how we interact with one another. The future of philosophy. What's next? As we've seen, philosophy has evolved over thousands of years, and it continues to ask the big questions. But in today's world, there's a new frontier of philosophical inquiry. As technology advances and our understanding of the universe grows, we're facing new challenges and dilemmas that philosophers of the past couldn't have predicted. For instance, artificial intelligence raises new questions about the nature of consciousness. If machines can think and learn, can they have consciousness? Can they be considered alive in the same way humans are? And what about ethics? As AI becomes more integrated into our daily lives, we'll have to wrestle with questions of morality, what ethical guidelines should govern artificial intelligence, and what rights, if any, should machines have? The rise of genetic engineering also presents ethical and metaphysical questions. Should we have the right to alter the DNA of future generations? What does it mean for our concept of identity and humanity when we have the ability to design life itself? Philosophical questions like these will continue to shape the future, as we move into new territories that challenge our understanding of existence, ethics, and the world around us. And now, here comes the mind-blowing hook. Imagine for a moment, what if everything you've believed about free will, identity, and reality is just the tip of the iceberg? What if the truth behind your consciousness, your life, and your universe is far more complex, far more interconnected, and far more extraordinary than you could ever imagine? You see, the real secret of existence is not about finding answers, it's about realizing the questions themselves are part of something far greater. Your mind, your body, your soul, your universe, all of it is part of an interwoven web of existence, and it is your consciousness that holds the key to unlocking it. We are not merely observers of the universe, but participants in its creation. So, what's next? Well, that's the greatest mystery of all. And the answers? They're waiting for you to find them. And with that, I invite you to subscribe and join us for more explorations into the deepest corners of reality, consciousness, and philosophy. Drop your thoughts and comments below. What philosophical question keeps you up at night? Let's continue this conversation and unlock the mysteries of the universe together.